sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us are football writer and broadcaster Henry Winter and the Sun's football writer Charlie White. Hi guys, welcome to you both. We'll chat to you shortly. Let's run through those back pages first of all, starting with Charlie's paper, The Sun. A lot of focus on the back pages on Benjamin Sesko, and the headline there, Sesko price match. Striker can pick between Manchester United or Newcastle. To the Times, who also have Sesko featured on their back page, talking about that £74 million bid. Newcastle still in the hunt though, they say. To The Guardian, where United trigger Sesko swoop as Newcastle try to salvage the deal, and also they have a picture of a fox stopping play at the 100. To The Telegraph, also Sesko featuring again, and there's also a picture of Thomas Partey there arriving at court. And inside the Telegraph's sports section, Martin Gamble rewarded with rousing victory as they hone in on Rangers' brilliant win over Victoria Pilsen in that Champions League third qualifying round. Charlie, let's start with you and your paper, The Sun. This is your story here. Their headline there, ISAK's Sesko limbo. How much of a limbo position do you think ISAK is in? I mean, where does the balance of strength lie here? You alluded to Newcastle being in a strong position. Is that because of the length of the contract that ISAK has at Newcastle?
Yeah, it's the length of the contract. And of course, ideally, I think, Newcastle would like to offer him a much bigger deal. And of course, there were talks about that at the end of last season. But Liverpool have got to come up with the money. I mean, Liverpool have already had an unbelievable summer, haven't they? Of course, they were ever so quiet last year. Arne Slot came in and delivered, something unbelievable, really, to win the title and almost, transform the title race. When his only player that actually came in was Chiesa, and he barely played. So now they've given him some, proper ammo in terms of players and the money that they've spent, and all those signings have looked excellent. And let's not forget, Liverpool's transfer sort of record over the last 8 or 9 years has been outstanding. There's not been too many players that you could say were a disaster, and there's no doubt that ISAK in that team, looking at the players that Liverpool already signed, is going to make Liverpool an incredibly strong team, not just in the Premier League, of course, but in Europe again. So I can see why he might want that challenge, but equally I think it's a shame that Newcastle have done so well to get back into the Champions League, and ISAK has become such a terrific player and really flourished for Eddie Howe. And I'd really like to see Newcastle maybe add a couple more players and challenge for the Premier League next season, which with ISAK and a couple more signings, I actually think they could do.
On Benjamin Sesko price match is the headline, and you talk about a bit of a bidding war going on for Sesko. Is that where we're at with this? It's a real tug of war between Manchester United and Newcastle for Sesko.
Well, we do have another transfer saga, aren't we? We've got one in August now. We've had Victor Gyökeres and that dragging on with Arsenal. Of course, we had Mbeumo as well, Brentford to United. That seemed to take ages, but the difference on this one, of course, is that there are two clubs with the money that are really desperate for his signature, and this is what makes it, really, really intriguing. And it could drag on. Manchester United have bid £74 million. Newcastle have already made 2 attempts. The second one is a similar amount. There's a bit of a debate in terms of Newcastle's add-ons, but I think we're talking similar figures. And Leipzig are desperate to sell. Sesko is desperate to play in the Premier League, quite clearly. So at the moment, we're waiting for whether there's a bid, or if there's not, whether Sesko ends up having a choice of these two clubs. So I think this one's going to rumble on for a bit, but quite clearly, I think Leipzig want to get the money in and start signing some other players and a big replacement.
Charlie, just going to stay with you on this because, as I mentioned in the introduction, this story features in a lot of the back pages and also on the front of the Telegraph's sports section. United in £74 million bid. And interestingly, just underneath that headline, it says striker could announce which club have won the chase as soon as Wednesday. I mean, do you really expect this move to progress quite quickly?
Well, look, I think it really depends on whether neither club's prepared to offer any more, and then ultimately, if the terms are the same, then we're going to talk, figures in terms of wages as well. So, yeah, it's certainly an intriguing one, and Sesko, I think, is relieved because a couple of weeks ago, it looked as though he was going to be left high and dry. And I think there was a concern, certainly at Leipzig, that there wasn't going to be a Premier League club coming in for him. But it looks quite clearly now, two very different options, but equally would be a huge opportunity for him, whether it's Newcastle or United.
Henry, can you see why there is this strong pursuit of Benjamin Sesko when you look at his age, his height, his speed, the fact he scores goals? He's got a lot of experience for a young player.
Yes, he has, and he will clearly be. I mean, Manchester United are clearly, I would say, the favourites now. Not simply because of this bid, because they've also shown interest in him before. And also, if you look at the team that Ruben Amorim chose at the weekend against Everton, he played 3 of his 4 number 10s in the attacking position. He played Mateus Cunha, who we expect to start as the left-sided number 10 in Amorim's 3-4-2-1. He played him as a centre forward, and Rasmus Højlund was on the pitch for 2/3 of the game. So clearly, Manchester United are very confident about getting a number 9 in, and Sesko clearly, as you say, he's quick. He's still only 22, so he's got he will still develop and develop. Personally, I think they need a number 8, a sort of physical, athletic, more mobile central midfielder as well. But if they can land Sesko, I think that will be terrific. But as Charlie was alluding to, RB Leipzig can be difficult to negotiate with, as Arsenal found out. Leipzig love an add-on, so I think there'll be an incremental element with this. But what a lovely position for Benjamin Sesko at 22, sort of not even a quarter of the way into his career, to have 2 such clubs chasing him. I mean, one offers cash and cachet, as it were, in Manchester United, biggest club in the country, and he can see the project that Ruben Amorim is trying to build there and drag them out of this slump they've been in pretty much since Ferguson left. Or he can go and be an absolute idol on Tyneside as their centre forward if ISAK does move to Liverpool.
It's an intriguing position Sesko finds himself in, Charlie. This story also featuring on The Guardian. They take a slightly different angle where they talk about Newcastle trying to salvage this deal. How delicate a position are Newcastle in right now? They've got that Alexander ISAK situation going on in the background, yet they want to bring in this new striker before, or if they do sell ISAK. How much do they need this Sesko deal right now, Newcastle, Charlie?
I mean, they do, but I still think they're in a pretty strong position because, of course, all along, Newcastle have maintained that they didn't want to sell ISAK, and obviously he's now, made it quite obvious that he wants to join Liverpool. But for a start, Liverpool have got to offer more money to Newcastle, and they've got to get a replacement lined up. So I don't think Newcastle are going to find themselves in a situation where they don't have an ISAK or a Sesko. I think that they'd feel pretty comfortable up there at the moment. Of course, ideally they want to keep ISAK. I think that's obvious. But once you've got a player who's had his head turned and Liverpool are prepared to pay what Newcastle want, then it makes sense for Newcastle to let him go. But equally, we've seen, on a number of occasions previously where we've all thought a player was going to leave, and then sort of last minute it's not quite happened, and people think, the fans going to turn on the player, and then within a couple of weeks he scores some goals, and all's perfect again. So I think Newcastle will feel comfortable at the moment, but equally, I'm sure, understandably, Eddie Howe will want to get it done either way.
Charlie, we're just working on improving the link we have with Henry right now, so we'll stay with you and go to the... Thanks very much, guys. Back with you again shortly for more chat. We're going to take a quick break right now. When we return, we'll look at more of the sports stories in the morning's papers, including a great night for Rangers as Martin Gamble is rewarded with rousing victory.